Welcome to the CFO Whisperer podcast with your host, Declan Tyrrell.
Hello. Today I want to talk about that situation for a seller when you've been asked to pitch for an opportunity and you know you're not the preferred supplier. In fact, there's a good chance you're not even number 2, you're probably number 3. Now, let me just give you a little bit of insight as to why that happens quite often. So from a buyer perspective, often we have to behave within our procurement rules. If we're a publicly quoted company, we're on a stock exchange, often there are regulations around how we buy or the transparency with which we buy or the protection that we have for our shareholders. If we're in public sector, often there's even tighter scrutiny around the process, the fair tender process that you need to run. So it's not unusual for me to know what I want to buy, know who I want to buy it from, and know how much I want to pay for it before I invite you in. But I must invite at least three into the process to be compliant with my procurement regulations. So that's why it can happen. Other times it can happen because we want to use it as a negotiation tactic. So for example, if I know I want to, as I said, by the time we go to market, buyers are typically already over 60% of the way through the buying process. We know what we want, who we want it from, how much we want to pay for it. Now, what will I often do? If I know I want to buy your solution, your product, your service, I will invite you in. But I'll also invite in your arch nemesis, whoever the one that you fear most. And we're all paranoid about certain competitors. If I know who that is, I will invite them in because that will keep you on your toes. And then I'll often invite in a third party, a wild card, someone who I've no real intention of doing business with, but they will frighten the life out of both you and your main competitor. Now, what can you do in a situation when you get this? Well, look, it's tricky. There's two things I typically say you can do here. If you're not supposed to win it, you're not going to win it. If the customer already knows exactly what they want, they're going to do, then that's it. But what can you get from this? Well, there's two things I talk about here. One, you can play for trust and credibility. So this is where you can demonstrate. You can have a grown-up conversation as an individual, you, with that customer around, is this really an opportunity? If we're able to deliver or demonstrate our service addresses your challenges to your satisfaction, will you be prepared to commit and move forward with us? If you get to the no, if you know it's no, you can even challenge customers around, it feels like we're only in this for a pricing or to drive the price down or whatever. That type of, I call it straightforward communication, that type of grown-up communication can often set you aside as a person of integrity, a person who's trustworthy, who's credible in that conversation, and that may build enough of a connection for that customer to introduce you to something else. Maybe they have another project that's running at the same time, or maybe future ones they'll start to think about. But the main thing is if you know it, you got to call it out. So you can play for trust and credibility. The other thing you can do is look to change the narrative. Now, what do I mean by change the narrative? Well, quite often if they've gone to market, someone has helped them shape the criteria on which their decision will be made. There's nothing wrong with challenging that. I've had great conversations with salespeople who have said, look, based on, what's the criteria on which your decision will be made? Based on what it looks like you're looking for, why are you even talking to us? Or can I understand better where you're coming from? And I've even had people challenging me, go, okay, that's the criteria on which you're working on? I'm like, well, is that the wrong criteria? I've had people say to me, well, look, absolutely. If you're looking at this from a operational perspective, if you're looking at this from doing it now and getting it, absolutely, that's the right criteria. But a lot of our customers are looking to future-proof their projects. They're looking to, future-proof wherever it may be, and that can start to challenge the criteria on which I'm making my decision, and can make you seem that bit more interesting around engaging and trying to understand why. Now, let me give you a real example of this. So I'm going to talk about a buddy of mine, Scott. And Scott was doing some work with NASA Space Agency. And part of what they do is identify potentially inhabitable planets for the future. Now that's mind blowing. Well, potentially, this is movie stuff, Interstellar, call it whatever you like. Now, that's great, but that calculation used to take them 2 years. They then did some stuff with Scott, and that came down to 2 hours. As a result of that, they've since identified over 350 potentially inhabitable planets for the future. Now, why am I telling you that story? I'm telling you that story because Scott brought that concept, that technology into a retail bank. And I'll tell you how. He was asked to pitch for a piece of business. And he was told by the CIO, we're bringing you in to scare the other two. We have a relationship with the other two. We'll be going with one of them, but we want your help to bring the price down. Are you prepared to come in and pitch on those? He said, well, look, thank you for your honesty, but I will do it on one condition. Your CEO is in the room when we do it. He said, okay, we can do that. So they started the presentation. And a couple of minutes in, Scott stopped the presentation. He turned to the CEO and he said, can I ask you a question? He said, you can. He said, do you have any children? Now, Scott knew the answer. He said, I do. I have 2 teenage daughters. He said, okay. He said, how do you communicate with your daughters? And they got into this conversation around WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all of this, Instagram, etc. All of this wonderful stuff in relation to how the current kind of communication goes with this. And he says, okay. He said, he said, I'm going to say something now. He said, you're currently working on a project that's looking to improve your customer experience around your communication with your existing customers. That's not your problem. Your problem is your bank communicating with your dollars because they are the customer of the future. He said, now with that, let me introduce the concept of the Bank of Dave. And this is where we take that same technology that was being used with NASA to identify potentially inhabitable planets and we bring it into your world. So imagine, if you will, your phone, your cellular phone, mobile phone, call it what you want. Imagine your phone having a digital finance coach on it. Imagine your phone saying to you, hey, Declan, your cellular phone bill is due in 2 days. Do you want to pay it? Yes or no? I'll say, yes, please. It's $35, euros, sterling, whatever it is. Okay, do you want me to round it up and put that 15 into a savings? Yes, I do. So now all of a sudden, using bits of AI and ML, your phone is now starting to identify your financial behavior so it can start to drive you towards that. But more importantly, can start to coach you towards your desired financial behavior. Now, with that, the CEO said, okay, let's pause this meeting and let's pause this project. And with that, we'd like to invite you in to help us reimagine our future. We want to have a conversation around that. Now, I tell that story because it is a good example of how you can take the narrative and change it. I cannot promise you that every time you do that, you're going to get that type of result. And Scott ended up with a huge deal off the back of that. It doesn't always happen like that. You win the ones you're supposed to win, but you can certainly fight for the other ones. And it's a wonderful, I call it, it's like a free shot. When you know you're second, third even as preference in relation to the customer who's looking to buy, now you can go and have some fun with it. And you can go and try and mess or have some fun around that narrative, try and seize that narrative, change it to something that's really strong or really part of your DNA, your values, that can work really well. Or you can use it to demonstrate your trust, your credibility, your integrity by calling out what it is. This looks like this is this. Just tell us if it is. Now you're going to have an adult conversation with that customer, and that tends to be reciprocated. It tends to go, you know what, that's a person of it. That's where the connection tends to happen. That's where trust and credibility is built, and often can be followed up by future opportunities. Because everything you do within a sales opportunity is not about just winning that opportunity. It's about building that personal trust and credibility so that you're in the game for future. And I'll leave you with one cautionary tale. I was buying, this is back in my London days, I was buying a London market system. I had a preferred supplier. I had a very close number two to it. The preferred supplier, I said the CEO wants to see a transaction flowing through it. He's not technology person. He's very hands-on admin. You're not trying to pitch it to him. He just wants to see one piece of business flowing through it. Can you do that? I was told yes. I had the CEO's car. He was on his way to the airport to fly to Brazil for a customer. Stopped off. He said, I got 30 minutes. He came up and I said, just show him what we agreed. With that, person sat down, put a slide up on it. I said, what are you doing? I put up a marketing slide. We're established in 18 countries. Our revenue last year is this. Our da 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 da. The CEO looked at me and if a stare could kill. And I turned around and I said, just show what you need to show. No, I have another slide and it was more marketing stuff. With that, the CEO got up and left. At which point I turned around and I said, you've just committed commercial suicide. I said, this is dead. And we actually ended up going with the number two. Only if it was by far the only solution, I would have stayed with it. I would have fought for it. I would have taken the bullet, but it was too close. I'm not taking the bullet for you. You were silly. Now, here's the thing that happened after that. I met that person at the next, if you like, conference, and they completely ignored me. They actually blanked me. Now, I tell you, if you think your happy customers tell one or two of their friends, unhappy customers tell everyone. I spent the conference telling everyone. I can't believe that muppet is after ignoring me and getting upset because of their poor actions during their sales process, which I was trying to handle. So I'm going to leave you with that. Is there anything you can do when you're third choice, second or third choice in the thing? Yes, you can. You can use it as a platform to build your trust and credibility. Or you can also look to grab the narrative, change it, and challenge the entire customer's thinking, which in this modern day where transformation is huge, customers need to be doing different things, can often work out really well for you. Right. I hope that has been useful. Talk to you soon.
If you're enjoying this podcast, please leave us a review.